Hello, I have here the LEGO Star Wars Executor Super Star Destroyer set, the little one that came out in 2023. This has just 630 pieces and I built it live over on my Twitch channel. I paid $70 for this, 70 US, and if you see a view products link on or around the video, you can click that to see some places you can buy it. This is approximately 44 centimeters in length or 17 inches, and that makes this approximately 1/100,000th scale. The random minifigure not included with the set. This shows you the size of it. So it's small, but because of the shape and aspect ratio of the in-universe thing, it still ends up having some significant length to it. So it doesn't require a whole lot of depth on a shelf or something, but obviously, you know, it does have some expanse to it. So you do see it from like across the room, you know, it just compared to the UCS one, it's absolutely nothing. However, compared to the UCS one, surprisingly, this looks nicer to me. It is much cleaner because it has a lot more of the tiled surface on it. I feel like even though the gaps, such as they are, and there are not a whole lot of them, do exist, I just feel like the whole thing is more finished and doesn't feel quite as gappy until you come right up to the tip. Like the tip definitely is not perfect, but they do not have, they use the thinnest, sharpest end wedge plate pieces here that they could, and they just don't have ones that come absolutely to a point there. And I think that's a perfectly fine compromise, honestly. You know, the important thing was getting the major notes of the shape here, and that was done very successfully, including the whole city area down in the middle. And even when you look at this from the side, it even has suggestions of the bluish tinged lights that go all the way down the equator of sorts of this thing. And those are just with, you know, trans light blue elements. And there's even an attempt to get a little bit more detail in here than you should be able to see with the use of just slightly different shaping along the way, and also a couple of grills used there. You know, they use some ingots along the way. The engines are done pretty nicely. Can't ask for too much better at this scale. They use two different sizes. So here you've got the BB9E heads just recolored to dark gray, and farther up, the more forward engines use Fez pieces in the same color as well. So you look at this from around the back, and you know, that's still pretty nice, and it's still pretty recognizable to me as someone who's been looking at the UCS one for years now. Now these little Imperial class Star Destroyers, they do come to a point because of the parts that are available. However, their size is significantly too much. They're way too big for this scale. So you kind of have to imagine force perspective here a little bit. You have to imagine that these are much closer to you than they actually appear, although that illusion is somewhat broken once you see one on the other side. Like that to scale is more the class of a first order heavy cruiser, or what we would call first order Star Destroyer in its size. But yeah, that's okay. Again, limitations of part availability is just completely understandable. Lots of nice little detail all across the top that did not require a whole lot of specialized building. You know, it's just nice part usages, clever techniques with existing pieces to make it look pretty right. I also do appreciate the little bit of dark gray underneath towards the back, a little bit of masking there, trying to avoid the center slit looking too deep. And for the most part, you're not seeing weird colors as you look across the top of this. There are a couple spots right in the middle there. I can kind of see a little bit of yellow that's underneath, but most of the weird colors are well hidden on this. Now, it does also come with this stand, and that has this printed piece here. Thank goodness that is printed. A couple grills here can potentially be popped up, and you put a minifigure there. Of course, this does not include a minifigure. It does not, in my opinion, need a minifigure. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but this is not a minifig scaled thing. So I personally am perfectly fine with the absence of any. And then you also get this as a printed piece. It's 1x4x3 for the general anniversary of Return of the Jedi. And it's a nice piece. It's a nice print, a lot nicer than this, especially since this one has to have that copyright notice on there, which just kind of brings it down a notch in terms of level of class, in my personal opinion. Now, there is no sticker sheet to show you, but these are the leftover pieces. You may notice some strange colors in there, some things that don't make sense, such as this dark brown. You got this sand green, you got this light or cool yellow here, the gold over here. What is all that about? Well, that's just all about an Easter egg that is nicely hidden inside of this as just part of the build. You don't see it ever once it's built, but as the builder, you get to access something that's very, very nice, taken directly from a scene that we may remember. All right, now let's talk about price and value. Again, I paid $70 US for this. It's 70 euros, 60 pounds UK, or 90 Canadian dollars, which is a little bit less than 70 US dollars. And I simply put, I think that's too much for what's here. For folks who doggedly stick to price to part ratio as the one only measure for value on these things, the price to part ratio is okay on this until you accept the fact that a very large number of the pieces are pretty small. So the price to volume of stuff ratio, the amount of stuff that you get for that money here, is not good. The amount of plastic that you get is not good. It's fairly solid. It's not as hollow as larger builds tend to be, but still, you can put this together in about an hour, maybe slightly more than an hour, and then you're done. And it's this little thin thing. You know, most of the time you're not going to be looking at it even from the top. You're going to be looking at it from the side. It is an excellent product. I love it, and I hope that they will do many more things like this back at the so-called, formerly called MIDI scale, roughly. You know, it doesn't mean a specific scale. It's more about the size. Same as they did with the Nebulon B frigate, which had a terrible, super limited release, right? These are kind of compatible on a shelf, obviously nowhere near the same scale, but you know, it's a similar visual presence for what the subject matter is. Again, the release of this was absolutely botched. It was miserable. The number of people who were able to get this, who wanted it, was tiny. And that sucks. I really hated seeing that. They messed up again with the release of this one. This sold out on Lego.com during the first 1 to 2 hours of its availability on May 1st, at midnight, you know, first thing in the morning, May 1st. And that was during the time when the Lego.com website was absolutely failing continuously. There were people who took more than 2 hours to get their purchases into their cart and then successfully checked out. It was a disaster of a release night on Lego.com. And yet, through all of that pain for viewers, for customers, they still managed to get enough of these to get it to sell out. Now, this had been available for pre-order before that. So some of them, you know, some of the initial stock might have been already sold, but clearly there are plenty of people willing to pay $70 US for this. Thus, my assessment of it as being overpriced is probably wrong. Now, on that day, there were some really nice gifts with purchase available, which also really boosted sales of all things, especially Star Wars stuff. But still, clearly, there's a market for this type of product, and people are willing to pay this type of money for it. So I'm the one who's wrong. Facts say so. I'm still going to stick with my opinion, though. I don't think that we should be expected to pay $70 for this much plastic. I would love this to be 55 tops. Even that is pushing it, but I could accept that. If like $59.99, and then I'd be looking for a discount, or, you know, use the VIP points and also credit card cash back, stuff like that to notch it down a little bit. But I hope to high heck that Lego sees how popular this was and realizes that what so many of us have been saying for so long is true. We want things like this. We want reasonably sized capital ships. We want reasonably sized, really nice looking display models. We will give Lego their money. We will give Lego our money. It will become their money if they do things like this. They need to do a Venator. Next, absolutely, they need to do another just regular Imperial class Star Destroyer. They need to just go down the line and do a ton of things like this, because this is a great form factor. Probably not going to be able to see it. Let me try this. I just wanted to put this next to, or right around the UCS. This looks better. It really does. Even though it's much smaller, it does look better. Props to the designer. It's such a good thing. They need to do more. I wish they could get the price to come down, but if they're able to sell them at this price, so be it. They're pushing things, but at least they've done a really good job. They've put out a very proper product here. The design is good. It matches many of the attributes that people want. And so, good on them. Thank you for watching. Hope that you've enjoyed this. I'll talk to you again soon.